75% of all divorced couples, they said communication was the smoking gun. I think that should make us pay attention. So I started researching. What I found was there's a really consistent theme of marriage killers. And we're going to look at those and we're going to actually walk through them. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Live Change Podcast. My name is Chad, and I'm joined by Jason and Joanna. And today we're talking about marriage, specifically marriage communication killers. But before we jump in, just a reminder, we want this podcast to go to lots of people. So be sure to like it, subscribe, and leave comments because that just gets it in front of more people. But today we're going to jump right in by talking about marriage. And this content is really great because it's not just for people that are currently married. It's maybe for people that are going to be married in the future or other communication that they have with other relationships. But it doesn't matter if you've been married for a year or 50. I think everyone's going to walk away with something from this. So I'm really excited. Now, I wanted to ask you guys, what is how did you guys meet your spouse? I want to hear, because we like these stories. How did you meet the significant other in your life? So, Joanna, how did you meet Kevin? So we already know a little bit of that story. So.
I was going to say, so if you want to go back and hear like the long version, you can go back a couple episodes, I think. But so we met in high school. So let's see, that was probably like 16 years ago. And we had different groups of friends. And so anyway, we kind of met like on MySpace, I guess, or met. Like he sent me a message.
Was it like a West Side Story kind of thing?
I don't know.
Different groups of friends, like is it the Jets?
I mean, we weren't really like,
it wasn't get that reference.
It wasn't groups of friends that were like against each other.
It was more like a Fiddler on the Roof. It was more like that scenario, I think.
I don't know, guys. Anyway, so we just had different groups of friends and just started hanging out. I remember like 3 months in, I was basically like, hey, like we're either going to be girlfriend or boyfriend, or like I'm going to go see what other options there might be.
Wow. You laid out the gauntlet in high school?
And Chad, I wasn't.
She knew what she wanted.
That's amazing. Do you recommend that for young ladies out there that it's like, hey, like don't mess around?
I don't know. It worked for me. And then it was
how old were you? What grade are you talking about?
I was probably 17.
Okay, so later. Junior, senior.
We met. I was a junior. He was a senior.
But I like that you were like, I'm like, this is for a reason. Like, I'm looking to date to see who will my spouse be. I like that.
Were you thinking that?
I wasn't thinking that.
You were more just don't waste my time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he was like thinking about going off to school, like in the fall. You know what I mean? Like it was like all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, if this isn't like the real deal, like then why are we doing this? You know,
very
I
pragmatic.
could just be having fun, like without being attached to someone else.
Oh, that makes sense.
Anyway, so obviously we've been married for 13 years now. So, so I mean, I guess it worked out.
It did. High school sweethearts. That's kind of rare.
Yeah, I don't like that.
You don't like
we don't call each other that. Like, or we don't identify with that. Like, we really only met. It was the spring of Kevin's senior year.
That doesn't matter. Still high school.
It's a matter of technicality. Is the reason you don't like it? You don't like the sentimental stuff.
It just sounds like so like, oh my gosh, that's so magical. And it's like, well, I mean, not really.
Fine.
We just both. I mean, we talk about it kind of like we just both really found each other, and we just liked being together all the time. And we're like, yeah, we're gonna pick each other.
Thank goodness you don't write Nicholas Sparks books because you'd be like, and they kind of liked each other and they wanted to hang out.
Well,
that's how the book ends.
It worked for us.
All right, Jason,
I like that.
How did you meet your Jenny?
I met Jenny I didn't meet her that night. I saw Jenny the first night I was on campus at Dakota Falls College. I transferred in. I was going to the University of Louisville. Long story. I needed to make a lot of changes in my life. One of those changes was I needed to get out of that. So I transferred to a small college down in North Georgia called Dakota Falls College. I'm there the first night, go to a basketball game, and during halftime of the basketball game, they bring people onto the court for a huge game of knockout, which I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's like a shooting game, right?
Oh, it's like pig?
Yeah. Let's just say it's like that.
Yeah.
All right. It's not anything like that, but we're going to say it's like that.
Oh, great.
Just to keep it moving. And anyways, I see this girl out there and she's got this long brown hair and she's really pretty and she wins the knockout thing, like with 100 people. So then she's good at basketball. I think she's good at basketball. She would say she's not, and she's probably not, but she won that. And I was like, I got to get to know that girl. So I kept looking for her around campus. And then I saw her 2 or 3 days later at the gym again. It was a Friday night. I knew nobody. So I went to the gym to just me, like just to play basketball because I had nothing else to do. Well, she was there by herself. So I'm like,
okay,
God ordained this.
A little meet cute scenario.
So I went up and was like, hey, this was so whatever. I was like, you're here by yourself? She's like, yeah. I was like, you're waiting for your boyfriend or something to come over here and
So
play?
lame.
I know. She's like, I don't have a boyfriend. It's like, you darn right you don't. You're about to. You're about to. I'm speaking this into existence right here.
I know this story is 25 years old, and I know how it ends, but I'm still cheering you on in this moment.
You're rooting for me.
I am. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then we did that weird thing for like 6 months, that whole first semester where I thought we were dating, but she didn't. But we were sure going out a lot. But whenever we talk about it, she's like, she'll be like, no, we didn't start dating until that summer. I'm like, what were we doing? She's like, we were just hanging out.
I think that's how it probably felt being Kevin.
He thought you were dating?
Yeah. And it was like, well, in my mind, it was like, we were just like whatevering. Like, that's what we call it. Like, that's what we
Whatevering?
like have termed it now. It's like, we were just like whatevering.
Okay. Well, that's kind of how we went. I guess everybody kind of has to go through that
phase
where you don't
Until
have
you
to define
the
relationship. Yeah,
relationship.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
So Jenny thinks the first time we ever started dating so then that summer we went away for a summer. So I went to work at a camp down in Florida. She worked at a camp in Georgia. We didn't see each other. And that was actually one of the reasons we said, I remember at Easter week, I remember us saying, you know what, we probably shouldn't start making it official. Like we'd never kissed. We'd never done anything like that.
oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, it was 3 weeks in, so no, I'm kidding. It was months in at that point. But anyways, we were like, we probably shouldn't because we're about to go apart. We're not going to see each other for 3 months. And then if God's in this, then when we come back, we'll still feel this way. So, let's not force it. Well, anyways, we left. That was the best thing for our relationship because when we left during those months, we didn't have phones or anything back then. So we literally wrote letters, handwritten letters to each other every day, almost every day. And then we would mail them. Nicholas Sparks.
That's a Nicholas Sparks right there.
Nicholas
I
Sparks.
don't know, guys.
And
ooh, we got to think of a good title for that. In the comments, leave a title for Jason's
I like
Nicholas
that.
Spark book about writing letters to each other.
the letter writer,
From down south.
the letter keeper.
It's not like a murder mystery.
What do you mean?
Like, you just said it in such a creepy way that it's like, and then it
Yeah,
goes
exactly.
The
terrible.
letter keeper.
Yeah.
That's a James Patterson
From the
right there.
mind of Nicholas
Yeah,
Sparks.
exactly.
The letter keeper.
So you wrote letters all summer.
Yeah. And then in July or June or July, I got to see her. I came up and met her family and all that. And finally at that point I was like, hey, I love you. And we had really worked through a lot of, I was an open book. She knew everything about, I was like, that was the first time we ever really talked. We talked for 3 hours. I was like, hey, so here's who I am. Here's all my crud I bring with me. Here's all my past. Here's all that. I was like, so do you want to go out? And if she couldn't handle that, it's like, cool. It's kind of like let's not waste time.
Yeah.
And of course she could, and she's amazing.
I like that. So we've already learned 2 things from you guys' story. Joanna, you basically were like, hey, I'm going to be honest with you, like coming out of the gate. Jason, you also had said like, hey, I'm going to share stuff about me. This is who I am. I'm not going to try to hide this from you so you can figure it out 3 years from now.
Yeah, totally.
You're like, hey, I'm just going to tell you these things now so you know.
Yeah, because again, if they can still want to be with you, knowing all that stuff, that's a pretty good sign.
That's great.
And if she didn't, it's not rejecting. That's just, oh, cool. So we're not.
That's already good advice. So
anyways, I just don't like pretense. And I think pretense is, I've always kind of had an aversion to that. And I just felt like, let's just get this thing kicked off on an honest foot, I guess. So anyway, so that's kind of, so then I told her I loved her, and that's when, here's my point. That's when she thinks we started dating. We were on the beach. Her family lives near the beach in Georgia, and she was wearing a Tommy Hilfiger white shirt. I remember everything about it. And I said, I love you.
That's nice.
And we kissed for the first
That's
time.
smooth. That's smooth right
Yeah.
there.
I remember everything about it.
Letters to Georgia. That's
Letters
the book.
to Georgia. Ooh.
Letters to Georgia.
There you go.
There you go.
What about you and Steph?
Steph and I met at Sight and Sound Theaters. We both worked there. She ran the box office, and I was an actor and led tour guides through the theater. So I would show people like the big sets and stuff like that. And I saw this really pretty girl behind the counter, as most relationships start. Was like there was like tractor beam of cuteness, taking me in there. And I remember I did some reconnaissance of everyone around her, asking like who's that girl? What do you know about her? And tried to figure it out. And then I was talking to her one day, and this is so lame. One day she was looking for a walkie-talkie that she had to talk to the front of house in, and she said, "Hey, where's the walkie?" And I knew that was a line from Tommy Boy. And I was like, that's all I needed. That was my end. That's all I needed. So I literally was like, that's from Tommy Boy, right? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, great movie. When are we getting together and watching that together?
Oh, nice. What if she would have been like, Tommy Boy? But that's just how she talked.
No, I would have. You know what I would have done? I was prepared for that.
Then you're like, oh, I got to show you.
You got to see this movie. It's so good. So, so we scheduled time. She was interested, and we got together. What we ended up doing is never watching Tommy Boy. We ended up talking for 8 hours, just talking. And when I found someone that I could just talk to, and she left. We never watched Tommy Boy. I called my mom. And I called my mom that night, and I was like, I think I found the girl I'm going to marry.
Dang.
And
that's cool.
And my mom was like, who's this?
Wait, you like woke her up?
No. Yeah, I think I did.
Wait, you mean like who called?
Yeah.
Like, who is this?
I don't know who this is.
Hey.
Your poor mom.
Yeah, that's not actually how Linda sounds.
One of the things I've always appreciated about you and Steph is y'all's talking. And one of the things you told, like the way y'all talk all the time. And you told me one time, and I remember being shocked about this. You were like, we don't listen to music in the car. Now, maybe that's different now.
No.
But years ago, you told me that, and I remember going, you don't listen to music? I was like, what do you do? You're like, we talk. And I remember that always striking me as really cool.
Like, we literally never listen to music. It's just, that's conversation time. Yeah. And now it's conversation with the kids, too. It's like, ping-ponging, and it's nice. Yeah. Car rides are nice.
After this conversation, I'm going to go listen to West Side Story and Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh, my goodness. See, it's funny. When Kevin and I were dating, I totally like, I don't know what's the word, like catfished him or whatever, because like he would take me to movies all the time.
Explain that. I don't know what that means.
Like where it's like I tricked him. Like it was like, like I love movies. Guys, I don't like movies. So like we would go to the movies like every weekend.
Oh, you were testing him.
No, she wasn't testing him. She was
I just wanted to keep hanging out with him. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll go to the movies with you. I'll watch movies with you. Guys, I don't really watch a lot of movies.
That was
and
sneaky.
So anyway, now 13 years later, he's like, remember that time when you like went to the movies for 2 years straight and like you hated it?
and now?
And Kevin and I are good enough friends that I know that Kevin goes to see most major movies by himself.
Well, but now it's because he likes the quiet and alone time, to be honest with you.
Can I join you, Kevin? No, that's all right.
He literally goes to like the Marvels and stuff.
Yeah.
Ticket for
one,
please.
Just like take it in, and now it's like for quiet. But yeah.
It's funny though how we accommodate at the beginning of relationships.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like Steph did that too. Same kind of thing is like, although she does like a lot of my movies, but she definitely tricked me into thinking that she liked Tommy Boy. We to this day have never watched the movie.
Oh, that's hilarious.
She was like, I didn't really like it.
Kevin used to take the onions off of his burger when we first started dating, and he was like, oh, I don't like onions. Well, he does in fact like onions. He just didn't want to have onion breath if that was the night that he was going to try to kiss me for the first time. And so it was probably like 6-8 months in where I noticed he like suddenly liked onions again. And I was like, I thought you didn't like onions. He's like, oh no, I was just trying to, I wasn't sure if we were gonna, and I was like, oh my word.
Young men listening
ridiculous.
Out there, you need to be taking notes. This is gold.
These are the kinds of things that we think about and that have to be taken
Yeah.
into consideration.
Well, and I said, well, I didn't think about that at all. Like, I love garlic. Like, I wasn't giving any consideration.
That
for
thought
you.
never crossed your mind?
No,
Joanna's
that's
literally just
interesting.
like gnawing on
But
an
I, like,
onion.
love
Like,
to
good to
eat.
see you, Kev.
I don't know. It's just so funny.
So, how long have you been married?
13 years,
13
yeah.
years, and you've been
22.
22.
22.
That was just enough of a pause, but it was
22
good.
this summer.
20 for Steph and I. So up here on this table is more than 50 years of marriage experience here. So, and I would say that, we're not experts. We're not gurus on marriage. We're not clinical psychologists, studying marriage. We're just married couples. Like we're people that have been married to our spouses for a long time. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about marriage communication today, and we're going to pull from our own experiences, but we're also pulling from research that's out there on marriage, and we're going to examine it through the lens and the prism of our marriages. And we're hoping that everyone's going to kind of walk away with something that they can work on in their marriage, their future marriage, their communication with other relationships, whatever it might be, but they're going to walk away with some really good handles. And truth be known, most of the things we're going to talk about today, if we look at them through the prism of God's best for marriage, he pretty much wants us to do all of these things and has told us so. So it's not a big mistake or not a big surprise to God. So first, let's start out with some stats here. This was really depresso for me. Was like I was looking at some stats on marriage. I thought maybe marriage was ticking, like divorce rates were ticking down, but as it turns out, marriage ending in divorce still 35 to 50%, which is a huge gap, but that's the gap I could find when I gave it a Google. 35 to 50% of all marriages will end in divorce. The second marriages and third marriages tend to end even more aggressively in divorce. And then this was really interesting. It said communication, and I'll share the stats in our show notes of these studies. But communication problems were identified as the most commonly reported reason for divorce among couples. Communication issues were cited as a significant factor leading to divorce by 75% of all divorced couples. They said communication was the smoking gun. Like, I think that should make us pay attention. Like, that should open up our eyes a little bit and go like, okay, so, every time, if you're driving in a car and that car is prone to accidents, you want to know why is it prone to accidents and how can we fix that? Well, we just heard that communication is what's prone to bring marriages to ruin. So let's figure out how to fix that. So first off, do you believe those facts? Do you believe that like communication is that critical to marriage?
Well, I can count on all my fingers and toes the times we've got communication wrong in our marriage where it's caused some problems. So yes, I would imagine that that's not far off from the truth.
Thank you for being honest. Let's start with honesty.
Yeah.
Like, not from a place of, this is not one of those Christian podcasts where it's like, like just emulate our marriage and you'll have a good marriage.
Well, and it's funny, like communication or lack of communication.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Jace?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, to me, it's not surprising to hear that. I know the seasons of Jenny and I's marriage that have been the most challenging, you can almost always go back and track it to a lack of communication or the way we are communicating. Yeah, definitely.
But I think one of the biggest problems with communication is the fact that it's just this giant term. Like, what is communication? That talking? Like, there's so much to the term communication, and communication can break down 100 different ways. It can stab you 100 different ways, and it's not just talking. Yeah. And I actually was like looking into this because I was like, okay, I want to figure this out because I'm like, do Steph and I have good communication? Is there still areas of communication we need to work on? Like, so I started researching out there, and there's some great books and articles, but what I found was there's a really consistent theme of there's a couple of marriage killers. And we're going to look at those, and we're going to actually walk through them. We're going to see, have those played a part in our lives? How have we seen those in our marriages? And what are the anecdotes for those? Is there biblical anecdotes for those? What are the ways that we've kind of overcome them? Or maybe, let's just be honest, maybe there's some communication killers in our marriage that we're still working on. And that would be great. Like, it'd be great to be honest and say like, hey, that one, still caution tape, still building on that one. So we're going to talk about that today.
And I would say as we talk about these, again, you said this at the outset, we probably should say it even more, when we think about just how to even get this podcast out there, these principles, the things that we're going to talk about, are true for any relationship. Obviously, we're talking about them in the context of marriage, but you have to learn. I mean, every single one of us, whether you're single, maybe you hope to be married one day, maybe you don't hope to be married one day, but you've got significant relationships in your life. We all have to. All relationships are built on communication. Every single, or else there's no way you can have a relationship with someone without communicating to them.
Totally.
And half the time, what you're communicating is not even about the words, as you see some of these. It's all about the way that you're felt by the other person, the way that their experience is with you. And so I think that'll come out in the communication killers.
That's really
in
good.
other words, you're not going to see on these like talk about work or talk about. I mean, those are helpful things that we'll talk about. It's this way. It's about how you talk about those things that ends up killing a relationship. So or hurting and damaging a relationship or enhancing it and building it.
That's really good. That's really good. So we're going to jump right in. The first communication killer is poor listening skills. Okay. So the first thing that hurts a relationship, not actively listening to your spouse, interrupting, or not paying attention. So poor listening skills. How have you guys seen poor listening skills play out in your marriages in the past?
That's never happened to us.
I think this one is probably a really especially modern problem because there's so much distraction out there.
I would say the tension that the way this gets manifested itself most in my relationship with Jenny is in me not hearing what she's saying, even though I'm listening, me not hearing what she's saying because I get so focused on fixing the thing, moving us past it, getting her past it, helping us move past. I mean, just, it's all like skip it. And that's how it's felt.
Yep.
Or to her, I think. So, or could come across, and sometimes I do. And so that's probably where my mind goes and how we've experienced that, how I've contributed to that. The poor listening skills is my mind's already kind of on to how do we fix this and move past it, which I think is a good thing. Mm-hmm. I think if you've got a husband or a wife that is a fix-it, like that's not a bad thing. They're trying to help the family unit. They're trying to move you.
Don't view it as an attack.
No.
It's what they're trying to do.
But it can hurt the person. I mean, I've hurt people close to me, especially my family, because what it makes them feel, I think at times, I've heard this from my kids, heard this from Jenny, what I can make them feel is like they can't be a mess with me because I'm on to the next thing. So they just can't be safe to be a mess. Mm-hmm. No, that's what it does to the people.
For me, poor communication or poor listening skills was a big one for me because I'm a talker. And so like Steph, when we first started dating and when we got married, I could talk circles around her. And so, and the other thing is I often would be guilty of listening for the sake of like, what am I going to say next, or thinking about what I'm going to say. And then I wouldn't hear her. I wasn't actively listening. And also some of my personality is just naturally wired to that. So then it would backfire because she would say something, and this is still something we struggle with to this day, is she'll say, I told you this 3 times, but I was not engaging. I was not actively listening. I was passively listening. I was like letting it roll over my head. And then when I have to be like, oh, I don't remember we were going there. She now knows like, hey, we had to like learn about my active listening skills and like, hey, I have to write things down. Mm-hmm. Or she knows that if I am doing anything else, I am a one-track guy. So if the phone is in the hand, I'm not listening. If the TV's on, I'm not listening. I'm not actively listening. I'm passively listening. So if it's like, not important, that's fine. But if it's important, I've got to focus. And that's something I've learned because it's still the difference between active listening and passive listening for us is a real thing. And I've botched it in the past because I just get too passive in my listening.
Yeah, I think some of it too just comes down to like wiring and how you listen. So like for me, I could be in 3 conversations at once and that doesn't like stress me out. And so like thinking about when you're trying to do that then with kids in the house and like little ones at that, it's like I could be talking to Finn and Junie and trying to hold a conversation with Kevin where like, because of the way I'm wired, that doesn't necessarily bother me, but that like drives Kevin up a wall. And then it's like, I feel like I can't even hear what you're saying, let alone like having two little ones like also need something. And so I think then it's not always like, you're not always set up in a great, if the time isn't right to have the conversation, that's when I feel like for me, like we get into trouble because he's like, I can't even have like a real conversation right now. And you've set me up to basically be in a situation where like the deck's already stacked against me.
Because you can multitask, but he probably is much more of a thinker where it's like, okay, give me the one thing to think about right now.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. How do you rectify that though? What have you guys done to? Because it's not like you're telling the kids like, hey, we're just not going to talk to you.
Yeah. So I think like for us, we've had to figure out when are the right times where we can have conversations that we can actually sit and hear each other.
That's good advice.
Which is hard too, because like, life is hectic, especially like in a season where.
So do you put some conversations on the back burner because it's not the right time? It's not good. It's not good.
Environment's not right.
The environment. Thank you. Yeah, it's not good environment.
Yeah, I feel like that's something actually like we did like marriage counseling. I guess it was a couple years ago now. And that was one of the tips she gave us was like, hey, then you might have to just plan for those kinds of conversations where I would probably lean towards more of the fix it. How do we just like deal with it so we can move past it? But then that wasn't giving Kevin the right amount of time to like be able to hear well and process. So yeah, like there'll be times where it's like, hey, we really need to talk about this thing. Can we talk about it tonight after the kids go to bed? Or like, hey, looks like the calendar's free Thursday night. So I don't know. I feel like the longer we've been married, we've had to like plan good times to communicate so we can be set up to like actually hear each other.
So what I'm hearing from the first communication killer is it's about listening. So it's like the very first communication killer is not even communicating. It's communicating through listening. So
which is communicating is obviously both. It's the talking and receiving. I remember, and with the listening thing real quick, Chad, I remember when I was in school learning about speech act theory, and the simple way of thinking about it is anytime someone's communicating, they're communicating at different levels. And we tend to focus on what they are saying, but the second level is what they mean. And that's actually more important to tap into. It's not what they're saying, which is where we tend to keep conversations, especially tense conversations. You said this, you said that. Oh no, I didn't say that. And we get caught up on the, you're always late. Like, no, I'm not always late. Last week we're just talking about what's being said instead of what's being meant. What's being meant is,
that's very good.
Hey, I feel disrespected right now. And we don't talk about that. The times where Jenny and I seem to be really tracking is when we're trying to move ourselves past what's being said to what's being meant here. Because what's being said, you can almost debate and argue so much over the words being used, and you're missing the point.
Do you think this is, I know this is the reason. God gave us, is the book of James, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. I think everything in the Bible is strategic. Like I don't think
it's for our flourishing. It's for our goodness. Yeah.
And I think there's a very specific reason God put them in that order of quick to listen, slow to speak,
slow to get angry.
Yeah. So, and notice I always like that passage that it doesn't say don't get angry. It just says let that be the last thing. Like don't rush to anger. Like, and sometimes we are fast to speak, fast to anger, and then no listening.
Yeah. So I think my encouragement with this one on the poor listening skills, if that's yours. Yeah. If that's an element right now that's kind of hitting at your relationships, I'd probably just say try to discipline yourself in those moments to focus on what's being meant, what they mean as opposed to what's being said. And that's harder to do, but that helps you listen. That helps you hear them, I think, sometimes.
Yep.
So
I'd also recommend figuring out what active listening and passive listening looks like in your relationship. So if you're two solvers, then, that's probably easy. But if you have someone that's not, that, is still processing their feelings, or if you have someone that's highly distractible, or you have a lot of distractions around you, you got to figure out when you can have two people having active listening ears on right now.
Yeah.
And, Joanna could do it with 30 conversations. I could do it with half a conversation, but you need to be honest about what those are. So next thing is, and this one's a no-brainer, criticism and defensiveness. So the next communication killer is criticism and defensiveness. So this is defined as engaging in criticism, blame, or defensive behaviors that can create a hostile environment, eroding the trust in the relationship. So,
Well, John Gottman has done a ton of research on this, and if you've never read John Gottman's stuff, you should read it. It's phenomenal research, and he's counseled thousands. Him and his wife both have counseled thousands
Judy,
and
right?
thousands. Julie, I can't remember.
Like that.
But they've counseled thousands and thousands and thousands of people, married couples, and because they've counseled so many, here's the sort of the bottom line: they were able to predict with almost 100% accuracy whether or not a couple was going to be divorced in the future based on, I'm talking seconds spent with this couple, like a minute spent with them. And the reason why is because they basically narrowed it down to there's 4 things they can look for. And if they see those 4 things evident in the relationship, doesn't mean they're hopeless. It just means, they're on their way. And the two of them, they call them the 4 horsemen. And 2 of them are in this statement you just made, Chad: criticism and defensiveness. Those are 2 of the 4 horsemen. That if those 2 things, actually the other 2, I think we're going to talk about stonewalling and contempt. We'll talk about those later. But criticism and defensiveness are massively important. And the difference between, because one of the questions that raises for me, if I saw that, is I would wonder, but aren't there things that I need to critique, or aren't there things I need to bring to my spouses or my my fiancés or my boyfriend, girlfriends to their attention? Is that criticism? And I would say no. There are some things that are worth, for lack of a better word, I want to say complain. Complaining, though, is like, and I'm not sure that's the good word either for it, because complaint has a real negative connotation. There are some things you need to address, and that's behavior. So you should address behavior. You continue to show up late whenever you've said you told our son that you were going to do that, you'd never follow through. You said that you weren't going to spend that. I thought we made it agree. You didn't. That's legit. Like, that's a behavior. Criticism is very different. Criticism is when you go, you never, you always. It's about the person. You're tearing down the character of the person. Those are 2 very different things.
It sounds like it might sound like that's superficial stuff, but it really is as simple as like the lashing out at the person. They feel that, and it just changing the verbiage can really change how a person receives that, right?
Well, 100%. I mean, if you're tearing down the other person and their character, I fundamentally I don't know what ground I'm standing on with you anymore. Mm-hmm. And your spouse or your significant other, your boyfriend, girlfriend, they should be the safest place for you. When you start tearing down who they are, I start questioning my own sense of safety with you.
And by the way, I should mention that John Gottman, that, by the way, he is a secular researcher. So when you go perusing John Gottman stuff, just know that he works with couples that, all over all walks of life, So
and it's interesting too, like how you hear those statements, like I think also affects then like how you then respond to them. And so I'd say this is one probably in particular that Kevin and I have had to work through, but not like Kevin doesn't have a mean bone in his body, but I get defensive when he shares statements like that. And so whether it's like something that might seem trivial, whether it's like the dishes or laundry or whatever, like I'll be the first to admit, like he does a great job keeping our household afloat when it comes to a lot of those things. And so even like early in our marriage, there are some times now where it's like, hey, Joanna, it would be really great if blah, 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 blah. And the way I hear that is like, oh my gosh, Kevin thinks I'm not doing enough. He thinks that like I'm a terrible person. And so I think too, like we've had to have conversations where he's had to say, hey, when I say this, this is like,
that's good,
just how it feels. And then I'm hearing like, oh my gosh, like, so, fill in the blank, whatever, with whatever like way that your brain then hears.
Which leads to defensiveness.
Right, exactly. Then it's like, well, then do you not see all the other things I do?
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the ones that like we've definitely had to work through. Again, back to communication, to hear each other well.
Yep.
And ask more questions, or, you know.
And not rushing to defensiveness, because the other thing is, so many times we turn a benign comment into an attack. But at the same token, sometimes we try to attack with benign comments. So we have to be careful, because like, you know, you might be trying to hurt your spouse by those little jabs, those little sarcastic comments, those little critiques. Don't do that. Like, don't do that. And it's so divisive. It is so hurtful. And that's death by 1,000 paper cuts. It may not be infidelity that ends your marriage. It might be those little sarcastic comments of like, oh, you're still on the couch. I see the dishes are still in the sink.
Dude, Chad, I'm so with you on this, and I'm glad you're saying this. There's a proverb that says, what does it say? I'm going to summarize it.
Yeah,
put it in the show notes.
Yeah,
show notes.
I'll do it.
But I'll paraphrase it. It basically says, only a fool makes a critical comment and then says, I was only joking. And there's a principle there. Like, sometimes those things, they're hidden. I just, man, if you can get rid of the sarcasm in your home, the cynicism, all that, in my opinion, you should make that a goal. The joking. I mean, just, I don't know. Well, you should have freedom to be, freedom to kind of relate. But I don't know. I mean, like, how many times does that stuff get misinterpreted? So why even play on those lines? And it's like, it's not a law. I mean, it's just, that's just, my advice would be to, and that doesn't mean that I don't, Jenny and I don't slip into that every now and then. We certainly do.
Yeah.
But we usually, we catch it now and try to.
Yeah.
But what did you just say? Those examples, like you just said, oh, you're still on the couch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That stuff stings, man.
Yeah.
And there's stuff behind it. And if our kids see us doing that to each other, I don't know, man. That's, so you can make a choice to just not do that.
It dissolves. It's like rust. It dissolves at the foundation of the marriage.
Yeah.
I'm going to give a resource here for this one. Is it's unfortunately gotten parodied a lot, but there's a book called Fireproof that there was a movie about, and that's why where a lot of the parody comes from. But the actual book Fireproof is this love dare, or I'm sorry, I think the actual book is Love Dare. And it came out with a movie called Fireproof. But in this, it's like 30 days of things that you do secretly to kind of show your spouse love and kind of restore marriage. And so I decided to do this. And what I was blown away by was like the first 5 days. You know what the big dare was? Was say nothing negative to your spouse. It was it. That, like, I was like, buy gifts, wine and cheese, flowers, poems, sonnets, nope. First, 5 days, it was like, and today, say nothing negative, no sarcastic comments, no nothing to your spouse. Here's what I did. I did that for 5-6 days. And what blew me away was after 3 days, there was a couple things, like I ran over a speed bump, or Steph ran over a speed bump, and I was going to be like, I was going to say something, and then I didn't. And then there was something else, but after 3 or 4 days, she stopped too. She didn't even know I was reading the book. Like, she didn't. She had
and a
no
lot of
idea.
those things are just jokey little things, right? They're not.
But as
egregious.
I became patient, as I stopped saying those things, she just in kind did it because that was the temperature of the water had been set by me.
Yeah.
So I'll put that book in the show notes, but it's a great resource.
The way you change a culture in an organization, the way you change a culture in your home, and if you want to think about it in those kinds of terms in relationships, is you behave your way into those cultures. This is exactly what you're talking about, Chad. I love that. You just start doing the thing that you have a vision for, that you want your home to be, you want your marriage to be, you want your relationships to be, and you start doing that. You start acting in those ways, and it will attract the people around you that hold those same values. If you're in a marriage, you're already sort of in those relationships. And so you begin to call out the best in them too. I love that.
And so maybe for you guys listening that, that's yours, is criticism and defensiveness. But it could also be stonewalling and withdrawal. So our third one is stonewalling and withdrawal. So where do you see stonewalling and withdrawal in your marriages? I'll start because I got a real relevant one here, but then you guys can jump in. So when Steph and I were first dating and married, she would stonewall. So that like that, and I asked her permission to tell you this, but when we would get in a disagreement or a fight, she would eventually what we called shut down. Like she would just shut down, and we didn't know it was called stonewalling, but she would shut down, and she would emotionally and kind of intellectually shut down. We could talk, but I could tell there was something. It's that emotional thing of like there's something between us. We're able to talk about what you want for dinner, but like I know there's something there. And she would shut down in conversations and arguments, and it would be days until she would finally be able to like converse and be like, here's what bothered me. But I realized I was also one of the culprits that created that stonewalling. So stonewalling, just to give a clear depiction, emotional withdrawal, refusing to engage in communication can make it difficult for couples to address issues and resolve conflicts. So for Steph, she would not want to talk about it. But I realized that my aggression in wanting to talk about things, like, so I'd be like, we would have a fight and I would be like, we gotta solve this now. We gotta fix it now. We're going to talk about it. We're going to knock down, drag out, discuss this for the next, 6 hours. And Steph would reach a point where she'd be like, no, I'm done. She would just shut down, and I would keep peppering and kept peppering. And what happened was she just learned to build the walls bigger, and they would last longer. Mm-hmm. And then it took a long time for me to start to realize that, like, okay, and we'll get into this with boundaries and stuff, but it took Steph years to finally now we don't see those walls come up anymore, and it was a learned behavior, but I helped put up the walls, but together we were able to take down the walls, and now they don't come up anymore. So
Jenny and I are the opposite. Like we very much, I will withdraw because it feels too vulnerable, I think, to engage sometimes. And Jenny will, when I say that I want to fix it earlier, that doesn't mean I want to fix the real thing. That means I just want to move past the circumstances that are creating the tension in the moment. Jenny's more interested in the real thing. And that's why she's so good for me, because she's interested on how we got here, what's really going on, like what's meant as opposed to what's being said and all that. And she'll try to get at that. And
that's good,
because I've interpreted it so personally or whatever it might be. And there's all sorts of different reasons. But so yeah, that one is definitely kind of in our mix as well. And it hasn't, again, in our seasons where we've struggled, I'm usually withdrawing more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think too, again, like the more you learn how like your partner is wired, like really plays into that. Because then like, so I've been in seasons where it seems that Kevin doesn't want to talk about it or is uninterested, when really he's like withdrawing almost to process, not necessarily to escape. And so we've had to talk a lot about just like, can you tell me that? So it doesn't just feel like you don't want to talk about the thing, but we need to talk about it. And like Chad, similar to you, like I could talk a ton about it and not even really have a conclusion drawn, but it's easy for me to verbally process. Where like Kevin has had to just say like, I don't have words to talk about that. Or I don't have the vocabulary of feeling words that you do. And so anyway, like, I think that that's probably how it shows up for us, is where he's just withdrawing to process, and I need to allow space for that. And again, actually not get defensive or frustrated by it, but just appreciate that that's how he's wired.
But there is a responsibility to the Kevins and the Jasons and the Stephanies to also not use stonewalling as a weapon. So that is something that people do, is they stonewall as a weapon to hurt the other person.
I see them as two different things almost.
Yeah. Like there's
stonewalling is, I'm going to shut you out now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
yes. And they can say, I need to process, but it's actually, I'm doing this to isolate you.
Yeah.
And so there is a difference. And I think it's like, there is time to process, but you need to get busy fixing. Like you can only process so long, and it's irresponsible to the marriage to process forever.
I think the withdrawal for me, sometimes, I mean, I have definitely stonewalled, but a lot of times the withdrawal is because I feel frustrated in the moment that I cannot, I feel vulnerable and frustrated, like that I can't articulate what's going on inside of me because I can't access. I have a very hard time. I relate to what you said about Kevin. Like I have a very hard time knowing what I'm feeling.
Totally.
And so I feel overwhelmed. So the easiest thing to do is like, I'm going to go cut the grass. Like, cause that I can control. I know what I'm supposed to do. I can make the line straight. I can, you know what I mean? All that.
And I'm over here like, here's 17 other words to say overwhelmed. Do any of those feel like relevant?
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't even like process that.
Yep.
But it's funny because then so I feel stonewalled in that moment, even though that's not his intention. And so I think being able to even just talk about that where it's like, hey, like, can you just tell me I don't know what to say right now? Because it feels like I'm just being shut out. Because I'm like you, Chad, where I'm just like, well, what about this? But what about this? If I say this, will it get you to talk?
Yep.
And it's like, the answer is like, no, it won't. Like,
Yeah, I'll
need
bring down
20
that
minutes.
wall with a little chisel. Like,
Yeah.
The stonewalling is, I feel like, rooted in contempt. That's why I think the stonewalling and contempt are the two final 4 hot horsemen. Is contempt anywhere on this list?
I think it's implied.
Yeah. So, and by the way, Gottman, we referenced him earlier, says that contempt out of all 4 is the most dangerous. So that's eye rolls, sighing. I mean,
That comes with that superiority too. Is like
you're basically robbing their dignity at that point. You're saying you're not even worth my time to that person, which is what those little subtle cues say. So all that to say, I'm not sure how we got on that, but the stonewalling, I feel like that is a different thing. I feel like that's rooted, and only you will know that. Like if I'm going to cut the grass because I'm frustrated that I can't, I feel vulnerable and frustrated that I can't access like why I'm feeling this way. That's one thing. That doesn't make it right. I'm just saying that's withdrawing because I don't know what to do right now. Stonewalling is cool. I know how to play this game. It'll be a week before you hear anything from me.
Yep.
That's a totally different motivation. That's the contempt stuff, I think. And so anyways,
there's a passage, and this passage is used to probably in good and bad ways in marriage. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Jason, like a lot of people use that to be like, we've got to fix it all before we go to bed.
Yeah.
Is that proper indication from that passage, or is that taken out of context? I don't think so. I think the bigger principle with that is keep short accounts. I think is the bigger principle. I see.
I'm not sure it's like, don't have to be legalistic with it. Like is the sun.
I've definitely gone to bed angry. Like, I feel like that's the one thing people write in all that when you're getting married, don't go to bed angry. And you're like, what world do you live in?
Well, the principle though is the principle is a good one. And this, I don't know how that's possible not to go to bed angry sometimes, like you're saying, Joanna. I think you can be angry. Here's the thing. You can be angry with your spouse and you guys and the couple still feel safe.
Totally. I love that.
Ensure safety. That's all. And so there are times where Jenny and I, there's a lot of tension between us. And the anger isn't because we haven't really, but she'll come up and just hug me or something. Let's just say, all right, we're safe.
Yep. That's great.
So you have that, you can go to bed. Yep. We're going to talk about the other stuff.
Totally. That's so good.
Like Steph has done that where it's like, I know we will not resolve this tonight. And sometimes early on, I would have to verbalize it. I would have to verbalize it by saying, are we okay? I would want her to tell me, are we okay?
Yeah.
And she would say, we're okay. I'm just not ready to deal with this right now.
But you're good. As long as you know we're okay.
But we're okay. We're okay.
Yeah.
And so it took years of, are we okay? Now we know we're okay because we will put that one on the shelf, that conversation, and we'll pick up something else before bed.
Yeah.
Like another conversation we'll pick up. So it'll be like, and it'll be like, so what are we going to do for dinner tomorrow night?
Yeah.
And it's a forced, we're okay. Like that's just one compartment right now of our marriage. But yeah, and so we try to do that where it's like, we'll talk about something else.
Yeah.
Just to show that is not the sum total of our marriage right now.
Yeah.
But sometimes Steph's like, I just don't want to talk about it. And so like, I got to give her that space.
And it's interesting too, because I think you also have to look for when are the conversations the same conversations over and over again.
Yeah.
Or which ones do it feel like you can't bust through? Because I think like even Actually, when we had our second kiddo, like it just kind of revealed some things that like we just found ourselves in some of the same circular conversations that we just decided like we needed to get help to work through those. Because I think too, having the same conversations on repeat that are ending in some of these, like you got to work through that because it's likely just not going to resolve itself. And so I think it's okay to say, hey, we need help getting through this one. Like what can we, how can that happen?
I remember when Jenny and I were probably 10 to 11, 12 years. It's funny. You can look at marriages and relationships and you can see kind of predictable patterns. 2 years in is usually, or after the first year sometimes can be, that's the adjustment. Sometimes I can bring up and people get discouraged about that because they're like, I thought we were in love. You are in love. You're two people now trying to figure out how to become one. When you have your first and second children, that time. So can be a challenging time because now you're learning how to be a family unit. And then I don't know why this is. I haven't given it a ton of thought, but somewhere around, I feel like 10, 11, 12 years tends to be another season where all the crud comes to the surface then because it's almost like you're old enough at that point. You've been in it long enough to go, what's the thing underneath the thing? Because for 10 years, you just kind of deal with the thing.
Yeah.
And then you're finally kind of able to start going, what's the thing beneath it? And that's when family of origin stuff tends to be a little bit more brought out. That's when I feel like that's a really important season if you're married, that 10, 11, 12 year mark, because that's when, again, all the new and shinies worn off. It wore off probably a long time ago. And you really, truly have seen the other person in their worst and in their best by that point. And you kind of are tired of just the cycles.
Totally.
I think at that point. And
Yeah,
that's when you want to start getting behind it.
Totally.
That actually makes sense because the year that most divorces happen, 8.
Yeah.
And in
8.
that season, we buckled up for the long haul. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like our option wasn't out. Like we're in this for the long haul.
Yep.
And so we finally got to a point where, probably year 11, 12, somewhere between those two, where we were just like, we got to figure this out.
I just talked to a couple yesterday. I just bumped into them at church and they were celebrating 12 years. And I went back to my office and wrote them a note, just encouraging them. And because I just thought, man, that's such a critical season right now. And I know what that's like. And I would really strongly suggest if you get to that point, you really do need out. Jenny and I, we went back to sort of marriage counseling at that point to help us work through some of that because we were finally ready to talk about, again, the thing underneath the thing. Yeah. And that will bring up some crud. So having someone to help with that is a really valuable thing. I don't think it's necessary. I just think it's real valuable. Yeah. And not everybody wants to go there.
Yeah.
You know. But.
So to put this one, stonewalling and withdrawal, I think the what I'm hearing from all of us is stonewalling is something you want to overcome and you want to get that out of your marriage. Stonewalling, get it out. And then you also, but withdrawal, you want to have healthy boundaries. And we'll talk about boundaries in a second, but you want to have a healthy way of withdrawal that doesn't hurt the marriage, but gives everyone the space that they need to cool off. Because here's the thing for you and I, Joanna, and you and I have to be careful that while the other person is withdrawing, we can keep going. And because we can keep going, we can actually do a lot of damage when we're spun up. When we're spun up, that's when sarcasm comes. And that's when our flurry of like over talking them comes.
Well, because you're probably wanting, Jenny and I have talked about this, you're probably wanting, see, the more I withdraw, the more she can't, now she doesn't feel safe because she's going, are you, so I know I can get something out of you by, I'll dig in on this or that. So she's pushing more, I'm withdrawing more. That's the cycle thing you're talking about. And just to see some, like, do you have a pulse? You know what I mean? And so
that's great.
And it's interesting. You mentioned family of origin. Some of that, like, we just really early on made some ground rules about. Because, like, just because of our family of origin that's stories, like...
That's actually one we're going to talk about is boundaries. I want to hear you talk about that. So, invalidating dismissive behavior. This is what you were talking about, Jason, is so invalidating dismissive behavior. Dismissing or invalidating the feelings, opinions, or experiences of one's spouse can lead to frustration, resentment, and breakdown in communication.
Yeah, I think that's
the
I
eye
feel,
rolls.
I feel sad. Yeah, totally. And man, I just feel sad about this. Like, wait, why are you sad over the fact that whatever. It's like, you just totally put them. I wrestle. This one's hard for me. So this is where the fixing it and all that kicks in, and you invalidate their feelings.
So you're trying to tell them, like, it's not a big deal. Get over it.
It's not a big deal.
How many marriages have said those? It's not a big deal. Why are you freaking out about this?
Yeah. Someone, I heard a pastor, I think it was Tim Keller actually, say, who just passed away, by the way, which is very sad to me, but great man, great pastor. But he said something one time. He said, the thing that you judge other people harshest for is usually the indicator light of what you've put your value in, what you think makes you worthy of value.
Oh.
So in other words, I judge people harshly for not being strong enough to get over their problems. So what does that mean? That ought to be an indicator light for me that maybe that's my idol. Like maybe my thing I put my own hope in that makes me valuable is the strength to get past my problems. So then I judge other people real harshly, right? Well, when a family unit, again, with your spouse, with children, if they come into play with your significant other, by doing, so that's mine, by doing that, if someone's struggling, whatever, and I invalidate that, again, that makes no one feel safe in that environment.
Yeah.
To be real. Like that's real life. I mean,
wow.
And it's real for me. I just don't show it.
Yeah. I think I've been guilty of dismissive behavior when it comes to things like, okay, good example. Like for when we were first married, I would show up late. I would come home late. I would work late at the church, or I would get in a conversation with someone, and I was supposed to be home at 5, but I would end up being home at like 6. And I just didn't understand it. So we had some family stuff because my parents and my family, we tend to be a little bit late. Which is
it wasn't a big deal for you guys growing up. You're saying
no. Oh gosh, no. You we're glad when you arrive. So, but I would show up late at home, and this was a very big thing for Steph, and it was hurtful. What I didn't understand was, like, I'm 30 minutes late. I didn't call. It's not a big deal, and I would dismiss her feelings of like it's not a big deal. It took me a long time to realize what one, it communicated to her that everything else I was doing was more important than her.
Yep.
It communicated that I didn't care about her feelings because her feelings were, I was scared. I was concerned. I thought something happened to you. That was the heart of it. She said, you're always late, but in actuality, it's like, no, I'm concerned when you say you're going to be home at a certain time. And so that was how that played out for us. It was dismissive behavior. I was quick to dismiss some of those kind of things. And
you're sitting there going, hey, in the grand scheme of life, if your husband's a little bit, I mean, these are the kinds of things you have in your head, and it's totally dismissive again of the, which if you listen, again, are you listening to what's being said or what's being meant? If you listen to what's being said, that's when you dismiss.
Yep.
Because you're like 30 minutes late. Like, come on, you got a husband who loves you,
Oh,
what's
totally.
being meant is, I want to honor you and love you and having dinner together. And that feels, it's like, oh, that's a totally different, oh, I don't want that.
But do you see how condescending it is when we tell
totally,
someone to go like, you're making too big a deal out of this.
Yeah,
you treat them like a child.
Yeah.
Being like, don't cry. You know, like you're making way too big of a deal out of this. Like, and it's like, no, that's your spouse. So whatever they're feeling is a valid feeling. It may be a feeling that they should ultimately get over, but it's still their feeling. So, how about the Wisher clan? Anything with this invalidating or dismissive behavior?
I think recognizing, again, like what's being said and not being quick to dismiss it. And so like I've also had to learn, like when Kevin does say something, that then it is meaningful. And so knowing that he is a processor, there are times where he has said something that it hasn't felt substantial, but like it was because he took the time to say it. And so, then for me to actually hear that well and then respond well to it is really important to him.
I think we can all do better when it comes to this one. When it comes first, for those of us that are minimalizing, we need to actually listen to what the person is saying and ask, is there more to this? I think it's probably wise to just go like, And be quick to apologize. We often dismiss when we've done something wrong. It's a defensive mechanism. Like it's not a big deal. I was late. I was immature. I was late. And instead of saying I'm sorry, I said it's not a big deal. I minimalized it. So I think I could have gone with I'm really sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would have been a better way to start than trying to minimize the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can start with saying like, I'm really sorry.
I remember years ago, 21 years ago almost. I remember David Ashcraft gave a message here at the church, and Jenny and I we were coming up to interview. It was 21 years ago, right?
Wow.
Right now in the season, we were coming up to interview at the church. And so it was a weekend we were here, and it was about relationships. And I remember David saying that one of the most important statements you can make to your spouse is, I could be wrong. Just saying I could be wrong. And how that can diffuse so much. And Jenny and I, we've always held on to that and just kind of said, I could be wrong. Like, because that's the opposite of dismissive.
Mm-hmm.
The dismissive, you reminded me of that, Chad, when you came home and you were just like, you know what? I could be wrong. I'm sorry. It's just every now and then back up, just say, hey, what you're feeling is real. I could be wrong about this.
Every couple I marry, I say the same line in their wedding. I say, don't win the battle, but lose the war.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could win the battle, you win the argument, but you'll lose your marriage in the process. So invalidating and dismissive behavior, just like listening and asking questions about what the root of the thing is, being quick to apologize, and share. And on the other side, the Kevins, the Stephanies, the Jennys, being quick to share the I statements. Like, this is how you made me feel. Mm-hmm. Like, this is how that felt. This is what I'm truly feeling. Instead of just saying you're always late.
You did this, yeah.
You did this. Like, so there's something on both sides.
And I think this is another one, just talking about other relationships for like parents and kids. So just, I think so much of like applying that to marriage, like also applying that to your kids. Because the more that they feel heard and not dismissed, the more they'll keep sharing. And so I've definitely caught myself in seasons where time is short or patience is thin and you're quick to invalidate or dismiss and you don't even realize it. But to have to like rebuild that spirit of that question or that feeling, like, I don't know. I feel like you only get so many chances as a parent to do that before then they just stop.
Yeah. And I wrestle with this because I'm trying to raise young men. I want them to be strong and resilient. I want my daughter to be strong and resilient. But on the men's side, and maybe this is where sometimes there's cultural stereotypes and all that, but I want them to step into their God-given masculinity, and I want them to you be assertive and all that. So here's what you can find yourself doing when Solomon falls down and scrapes his knee. Say, "Oh, that didn't hurt," because it didn't hurt. You know what I mean? You're not injured, but that's like a dismiss. Again, that subtly communicates you can't have feelings. As opposed to the difference of saying, "Oh, I bet that hurt, didn't it?" But you know what? You're strong, and you can keep playing.
Yep.
And that's acknowledging it. And so sometimes it's just, instead of dismissing it, like, you don't have to play the drama game with everything either.
Mm-hmm.
But you can acknowledge it and move past it as well. Sometimes if you don't dismiss it, you're able to move past it faster.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. And so much of this is like pointing towards growth mindset. So like, if we can help our kids do this now, as they grow, we're talking about the things that we're bringing from our family of origin. So we can't break every generational cycle in one generation. But if there are little ones that are obvious, just don't miss out on the moments to be able to influence that positively.
Oh, that's really good. So next up, we got poor timing and lack of prioritization. So this probably goes back to the car and the radio, which is, is there even time to communicate with your spouse? Like, are you passing ships in the night? So one of the things that I always am a student of marriages that last longer than mine. I want to learn from them, the people that have gone before me. And I think one of the things I took away was this one couple, I can't say her name, but this one couple that goes to LCBC. She has a great relationship with her son. She loved her son, and as this person was getting closer to graduation, I knew that I was like, what is going to happen? Because she's so fixated on caring for her son that, what's this going to do to her marriage? Because the focal point of the marriage was on the son.
Mm-hmm.
But then I talked to her. I said, how are you doing getting ready for the graduation? And she said, we're so excited to see him go. And I was like, I thought you guys were going to be like wringing your hands and stuff. And she was like, we started building up a relationship with each other a couple years ago and having time together to talk, to ride motorcycles, to do things that we built up things that we like to do together and communicate together while he was in middle school and high school, so that when he would someday go, we had this foundation to come back to.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that if we're not careful, our lives become about our children, or they become about our jobs, or they become about our friend group or whatever. And before you know it, it's like, have you had any time and to just be with that person and develop fun memories, not just like sitting on the couch, but like going out and experiencing life together and having that connectivity together.
Yeah. That's really good. That's very, very good.
So
yeah, the poor timing one probably just makes me think of, you just got to prioritize, especially as more, I mean, we all, we're working where, if you've got kids yet, if you've got other things happening, it's not like we stop being friends with other people and all that kind of stuff. And that one is just easy there's never feels like there's a real good time unless you just set it apart ahead of time.
I think it's turned the radio off.
Yeah. Find the pockets.
Yeah, like I don't think it's about rearranging your life to like have mountaintop moments with your spouse. But like, so Joanna, what's a pocket of time that you and Kevin have found?
I don't know.
Maybe this is something you're working on, finding time.
Well, I think the way we've talked about it is probably maybe in two different veins. So one, like we live and die kind of by like our family schedule. And so we're both working parents. We have 2 young kids. It's funny. Like I would bet that 10, 11, 12 year mark too is just like stage of life. And
totally.
So,
Yep.
I think we've had to figure out, like we probably talk about our family calendar more than anything else, just to make sure we know what's going on. And then we know how to build things around that. So like kind of the idea of like, let your yeses be yes and your nos be no. And so what goes on the family calendar is also intentional. So I'd say like, that's probably one way we've talked about it.
Okay.
The other way we kind of talk about it, whether this is right or wrong, this is kind of for us, is that like sometimes it almost feels like we're in a power save mode where it's like we can't be all things to all people right now. And so where we're choosing to put the time and energy, some days our kids win and we don't. But like we just acknowledge that. Then like date night is coming and it's like we are prioritizing date night and our kids are usually with like Nana or, And so I think then like figuring out, when are we just in power save mode where again, we have established safety, like we know like we're going to come out on the other side of this.
Yep.
But we're just in a season of life where it's like, if we tried to do all things right all day, like we'd be exhausted. Like that's just a game we could never catch up to.
Yeah.
So yeah, family calendar and just sometimes recognizing like, hey, we're in a little bit of a power save mode.
Yeah.
And so putting the right energy and the right things at the right time.
I would say, but some spouses, I think it's, for me, for instance, if I go 2 or 3 days without processing with Steph, I start to get, it's going to make me sound profoundly weak, but I am I'm a weak man. If I don't process with Steph my life in like 2 or 3 days, I start to get depressed. And it took me like, we're talking like year 18, 19 that we're realizing this. I need that time. So the other thing is there is power saving mode times, but I think you also have to be honest with what your needs are. And, so some spouses, you're going to have to make that time.
Yeah.
Like
so power save mode might be the 2 days to get to day 3. And also I wouldn't say rewind. That's not weak. That's you recognizing that you're in a partnership.
Thank you.
And so I also don't think there's anything wrong with saying like, I'm in a partnership and I need my partner.
Yeah.
And so that's not weak.
And Steph just makes life manageable for me. She processes it with me and just having that time. And so sometimes
which is the point.
Yeah, totally. Yes, I hope.
Yeah, totally. Because I think on that, like you could go process with someone else and you're not. And so like, I think that's really important. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing to be able to say, hey, I need you. You are my partner. And so like, I think that that's something like, I think that's awesome that you guys have that.
And I think just to respect the spouses that are like, I need that time. And it's not a big thing. We're talking about whatever comes up, but it's important. So just honoring that some spouses need daily time, some spouses need weekly time, but there's levels of prioritizing time.
Because I think part of that, like that's something that I share with Kevin, because it's like, he is the one I want to be processing life with. He is the one that I want to affirm X, Y, or Z. He is the one that like I want to be able to vulnerably share. And so, yeah, I think with that, choosing to prioritize is also choosing for your spouse to be the one that you're sharing all of those things with.
That's good.
And yeah, being able to be really honest and clear about that.
Okay, let's talk about lack of boundaries. We've been hinting and kind of revolving around this one for a while. I think sometimes with communication, we need to have certain topics, certain ways of communication that we need to set parameters. So this is what it says about lack of boundaries. Failure to establish and respect healthy boundaries in communication can lead to overstepping personal limits, feeling overwhelmed, and inhibiting open and honest dialogue. So what I would compare this to is, so Stephanie, I had to realize that because of the stonewalling, because of the withdrawing, I had to realize she needed time to withdraw. She needed time to process. So about 5 or 6 or 7 years into the marriage, I don't know what it was, we set up this boundary for Steph that in any kind of argument that we were having, even though that I was getting energized and I could go all night, she had the permission to go, I'm done talking about this. I need to be done talking about this. She'll use those words, I need to be done. That's a boundary for us, is like Steph always gets to say, I need to be done. And when she says, I need to be done, we're done. We're done for now. We'll put it away. I'll say, are we good? Are we safe? Everything like that. But I need to be done. And I think that was a boundary for us. Another boundary for us is like, we don't go after each other. Like, we don't talk about families. That might be a boundary, for people. Is like, we don't go after families. We don't, say like, well, you're like this or who else does that? That's deeply wounding, and it's offensive and it's hurtful. So that's another boundary, is like, we just know, like, with that, the comparison game. That's an off limits thing for us, is you're not like this person, or I wish you were more like this person. Those are boundaries. Mm-hmm. What are some?
A couple of ours are, we've talked about avoiding, and we don't do either of these perfectly, but they definitely have been conversation points for Jenny and I. The extreme statements of always and never. We try to avoid those words. That's really always good. And never. No one always does anything, and no one never does anything. And so you never help around the house. You always, dismiss my feeling, whatever. I mean, I'm trying to think of simple examples. So, the silly part about whenever you use those kinds of statements is now you start arguing about the always and the never, as opposed to the thing again. So yeah, it's just good to try to eliminate those extreme statements, because they're not true. And now you're arguing about that. The second is boundary for us is we try our best not to get historical, and so bringing up past stuff. And so
like grudges and stuff.
Yeah, or here we are again. You said in year 2 of marriage that you went, or well, just like you to I remember when we went to my parents' house back in Christmas of 17. It's just bringing stuff up that you've already talked about, or maybe that you've already whatever. And it's just not helpful. And that also is indicative of scorekeeping. And dude, scorekeeping is the fast track to eroding a relationship. If you're keeping track of, they've said this, they've done that, and you're keeping a scoreboard in your head.
There's the Bible talks about love, and love doesn't keep account of wrongs.
Yeah, that's right.
So
is that in First Corinthians 13?
And
keeps no record of wrongs. Yeah, that's right.
So that's scorekeeping. So it's almost like God knew.
Yeah, yeah.
Joanna, what are some boundaries in the Wishart house?
Yeah, I don't know.
Sounds like you have a withdrawal clause along with Steph and I, like a withdrawal where Kevin gets to have some time.
Yeah, and I think some of that too, I don't know that he has like a phrase, but it's more just I've had to become really in tune probably with his just body language and just noticing what some of those moments are. I think for us too, we work really hard to stay united or like to even if that means talking it out or taking a break and coming back to it, like for us both to be united in whatever the thing that we're discussing. And maybe that's so like it, maybe it's like what's the right word? Just like we never want to walk away feeling like one of us has like won. Like that's not the goal. Like the goal is to walk away like both feeling heard and understood with like, how are we going to move forward? And so, yeah, maybe that like united in spirit. I don't know necessarily how to call it.
I think there's something with parenting. So like you're united in parenting decisions too. So that's probably a communication boundary too. For you guys would you say that like you never take sides in front of the kids, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, we try not to. Like, you know what I mean? With best of intention.
Yeah. No, it's so you know when your spouse is like tiptoeing on that and you're like, like, hey, let's.
Yeah. Or the kids come in and like they've already asked dad for brownies and you didn't know. So like some of those moments. But
your kids are really cute though, so I would give them brownies. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably that to make sure that like we're walking away from whatever the conversation was, knowing again, like for me, safety is really important just because like probably just from some of my background and family of origin. Sure. So I think just establishing like, yes, we're walking away united. We're still good. And so like, yes, sometimes verbally communicating that.
So one of your boundaries is we will always end, we're good. Not that language, but another one for us is the kids can't end our parenting, our marriage conversations. So like Steph and I, we don't mind having disagreements. We usually save knockdown, drag out things for when the kids are in bed, but sometimes you have disagreements in front of the kids. And this might be wrong. There might be psychologists being like, that's not what you should do. But we have disagreements in front of the kids.
I think that's very healthy.
And well,
your kids need to see you fight fair.
That's what we hope for.
100%.
And so like they see us like, and they see us get it wrong, but they see us get it right sometimes. And they also see us shift to, we're okay.
Yep.
We're okay. But every once in a while we'll be having a disagreement in the car and there'll be a little voice from the back seat that chimes in. And then all of a sudden the eye of Sauron goes to that child and we're like, what? A boundary for us is the kids don't enter the conversations like that. No, no, this is out of your pay grade.
I like that. I actually like that a lot.
So they're not allowed to enter into mom and dad's conversation. And all of a sudden that will unite us real quick.
Yeah.
Well, we're on the same team on this one.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You don't contribute. So Jace, anything for lack of boundaries or anything, in any of or both of you, like anything out of all of the ones we've discussed, the conversation or communication killers, is there anything that you want to kind of sum up or lock up?
I would just say that with all these, I mean, every one of these has been present in my relationships, not just with Jenny, but in any meaningful relationships I think I've ever had. Most prevalent with Jenny in a marriage relationship because marriage is what brings it out of you. Probably one of the things I would just remind us of, and even I would say it's one of the best pieces of advice anyone's ever given me about marriage. We went through premarital counseling, and I remember our premarital counselor's name was Phil Howard at the time talking to us about this, and it doesn't, how you hear this when you're engaged is very different how you hear this at 22 years of marriage. One is, early on it's like, yeah, in theory, I understand that. And then at 22, it's like 22 years in, you're like, oh yeah, I felt that. And sometimes the hardness of that. And it's this, marriage isn't designed. Now, okay, I'm going to get some pushback on this probably, but let me explain. Marriage is not designed. God didn't give us marriage for our happiness. God gave us marriage, and marriage is designed for our holiness, to shape us more into the image of God. That doesn't mean, so here's the pushback. That doesn't mean you can't be made more in the image without being married. Not saying that. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be happy in your marriage. I'm trying to say, and it's not me. This is what Paul said in Ephesians chapter 5. For husbands, this means love your wives just as Christ loved the church. So here's the model, here's the image, here's the vision of what a Christian marriage can be. Gave up his life for her to make her holy and clean. washed by the cleansing of God's word. He did this to present her to himself as a glorious church without a spot or wrinkle or any other blemish, and said she will be holy and without fault. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as they love their own bodies. In other words, there is something sacred that happens in marriage, which is if you let it, it will refine you. It will challenge you. It will bring out the best and it will bring out the worst. And part of moving towards holiness is allowing those rough edges of our character, of our past, of our sin, of all of that to be polished and to be washed away, right? As Paul says it there. Marriage can have that ability and effect. It's not the only way, but marriage can have that. That relationship can have that. So my point is, let marriage do its holy, sacred work in your life. And one of the ways that happens most is when there's conflict, where there's tension, which there will be, allowing yourself to die to yourself to do some of the things we've been talking about here. Instead of withdrawing, to open up. Instead of getting back, instead of holding on, resentment, you give up willingly for the good of your spouse. I mean, that's how we're made more into the image of Christ. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about marriage. That's the hard thing about it, but that's the beautiful thing about it.
Love it. It's worth fighting for.
Yes.
So to close this one out, I just want to challenge everyone that's listening to the podcast today. Pick one. Like, you're going to probably have to work on all of them, and we all do. And I'm going to go home tonight and work on all of them again. But pick one of the communication killers and start working on it. When you start to have some success in that, work on the next one. The other thing I'd say is, like, in our show notes, we're going to have resources available. We're going to have there's some great articles we've written. There's going to be an article about these communication killers. We might even include some more. And there's also going to be some resources like the books that we talked about and things like that. So make sure you hit up the show notes. And as always, with everything that we do, this is all about, now that your life changed by Christ, live that change out.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to follow the show, send today's episode to a friend, and leave a review. The Live Changed podcast is produced by LCBC Church. LCBC stands for Lives Changed by Christ. We are one church in multiple locations across Pennsylvania. For more information about LCBC, resources from this episode, and ways to grow in your relationship with Jesus, go to lcbcchurch.com.